Alright, so this is the start of our second lecture in the Animals Without a Backbone chapter. So this is the second video link. First lecture we talked about general features of animals, what makes an animal, to go in kingdom Animalia. And then we started with phylum Porifera. Officially animals, but just kind of weird stuff because they don't have true tissues or true organs, but they have the other basic features. So our next phylum to explore is going to be the Cnidaria. Phylum Cnidaria, this is the Cnidarians. So all of the animals in this phylum are known as Cnidarians. Now the basic features, characteristics of Cnidarians, they have radial symmetry, meaning their body is around a central axis and you have to slice it any direction you can get identical halves. Most of the Cnidarians alternate between two body forms. The Medusa body form has a mouth surrounded by tentacles, and the mouth points downward and it's kind of bell-shaped. So think about a jellyfish. That's your Medusa body plan. The polyp body plan is a stalk that is attached to a substrate with the mouth / tentacles pointing upwards. Okay, so the hydra over here, or a coral polyp, those are the polyp body plans. Now, Cnidarians alternate back and forth sometimes. Sometimes they spend most of their life in one form, and then just during a reproductive portion, they're a different form. Then they mature, they go back to the other form. It just varies from group to group within the Cnidarians. When we look at the body plan, we're going to find it is composed of two tissue layers. The epidermis layer, this is what covers the body surface, and the gastrodermis layer. This is a layer that will lines the internal body cavity. Okay, so those are the two key tissue layers associated with the Cnidarians. All right, so for a better perspective, let's take a look at different Cnidarians. All right, so the body plans here. So you take a look at the body plan from on top. If you're looking at Medusa, we have this one here. So there's our Medusa body plan. Looks like this round dome bell structure with a bunch of tentacles radiating out. From the side, looks like a half moon and then tentacles hanging down here. And then if we cross-sectioned it, radial body plan, I can cut it in any direction and it'll be identical, but cross-sectioning, you're going to see the mouth right here. So that opening right there is the mouth. And then that goes up into a thing known as the gastrovascular cavity. So GVC is going to be an abbreviation we're going to see more of. And then this is all surrounded by tentacles. The polyp body plan down on the bottom here, same concept, except it is kind of flipping that body upside down. But you create this stalk or stem-like structure here. The mouth is on top, the tentacles point upward. The gastrovascular cavity is going to be down in here for this body plan. Okay, so Medusa body plans tend to be mobile. They kind of move around a lot more, sometimes intentionally, other times just drifting. The polyp body plan tends to be more anchored, kind of attached to substrates. They tend not to be nearly as mobile. Some can, but just not as much mobility in that body plan. All right, now the Cnidarians. Huge feature. Red star this one. Let's put a couple of those up there. Boom, 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 boom. Cnidocyte. The cnidocyte is a major defining feature of the Cnidarians. This is a cell that has the ability to sting, stinging cell. All right, that is the major feature of all members of this particular phylum. So a gun is an easy way to think about it. That is the cnidocyte. The nematocyst is the structure, I'm going to put in quotes, shot out of the gun. So there's different things that can get discharged from these cnidocytes. The discharge structure is known as a nematocyst. There's over 20 different known nematocysts in the marine ecosystem. Some of them are going to be little harpoons, others will be sticky threads, some of them have toxins. There's this whole spectrum of different things associated with the nematocysts, what they're shooting out. Once they've shot something, the cnidarian grabs it, drags it back into the mouth, and then it goes into the digestive system, into this thing we call the gastrovascular cavity, the GVC. That's why I highlighted it, and I'm going to underline it here. Gastrovascular cavity. So the digestive system is a sac, just this big bag. The opening of the bag is surrounded by the tentacles, and all the prey gets pushed into there. Digestion occurs in there, and then wastes come out the same opening. So take a grocery bag, shove stuff into it, close it up, shake it around, bust it up, digest it, absorb it, and then whatever wastes you have, squirt back out the opening of the bag. That's the basic principle of the gastrovascular cavity in the cnidarians. All right. Now, within cnidaria, reproduction tends to be sexual for a lot of them, and what they do is they often will produce a medusa, the body plan, the medusa body plan. Those things move around, they swim away, they release eggs and sperm. So we can see a medusa over here releasing eggs. Here's a medusa body plan releasing sperm, and then that forms our zygote. The zygote swims and then eventually settles down, forms a polyp, and polyp grows, matures. When it's time to reproduce, it produces a new medusa, and then the cycle keeps turning. So that is the sexual reproductive aspect for a lot of the cnidarians. Again, there's going to be variation within the cnidarians, but that's our general principle of sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction, piece breaks off. It fragments, it buds, it has a new section that gets produced, and now you have an identical clone. So here's a much better picture showing a hydrozoid type of cnidarian that goes through sexual reproduction. This one has two different types of polyps. One of the polyps is going to be a feeding polyp because it has tentacles. The other polyp is a reproductive polyp because it has these little buds here, and those are the medusa that are being produced. Those get released. Again, some medusa are going to be female, other medusa are male. Sperm and egg, fertilization, development into the larva, and then that larva settles down, grows back into a new polyp, and you just keep circling. Okay, so that's what we're looking at with cnidarians for reproduction and the reproductive features. Now, types of cnidarians. First class we want to talk about are these cnidarians known as the hydras or hydrozoas. These guys are colonies of polyps. So there's a whole bunch of polyps all working together. When they do reproduce, they use a medusa for reproduction. Now, a good example of a member of Hydrozoa is the Portuguese man-o'-war. Okay, so this guy is made up of a bunch of different polyps here. So there's gonozoids, gastrozoids, dactylozoid polyps. All these are different types of polyps. They're working together, they're coordinating, and they develop, one of the polyp types develops into this thing called the nematophore. That's the sail that you see above the water. And what will happen is this drifts around, and those tentacles, those polyps hang down underneath the water, and when something swims into it, gets tangled into the polyps, the discharged nematocysts get discharged into that fish there, it stings it, discharges toxins, kills the fish, drags the fish back up to the mouth, and gets pushed into the gastrovascular cavity, digested, and the polyps are happy. So the polyps share the common gastrovascular cavity. That's why some of the polyps that are reproductive polyps are able to feed, even though they don't have their own feeding structures. And so that's Hydrozoa, or the hydras within cnidarians. Scyphozoas, these are your common jellyfish. Generally, their body or their life cycle is dominated by, that should be a medusa, dominated by a medusa body plan. And what we'll see is there's some mobility to them, but a lot of times they're just carried around and kind of drifting in the water currents, some contraction, some contraction of that bell structure, this kind of rhythmic pulsing to produce some movement in them. These guys are predators. They are carnivores. They're eating whatever they get a hold of that runs into those little tentacles down there. So Scyphozoa, that's our common jellyfish. Cubozoa. Here's a group we want to try to avoid as much as possible. These guys are known as the box jellies or sea wasps. Those are the common names. So think about that name, sea wasp. The nematocysts are highly toxic in this group. The sting from a cubozoa is incredibly powerful. It's a lot worse than a sting from a Scyphozoa. So that's one of the big features with cubozoas is their nematocysts are highly toxic. They have fewer tentacles than the common jellyfish. And generally, we call them cubozoa because they generally have a cube or box-shaped body plan. So if you look at the body of this guy, it's more of a cube or somewhat of a box-shaped compared to that dome or umbrella shape of the common jellyfish. So general features there to distinguish between two classes of cnidarians. Third class of cnidarians are the anthozoans. This is a big group. Very, very big group, dominates a lot of the coral reef because these are all of your corals, your anemones, and a group known as the gorgonians. Now, with these guys, they can be single or colonial polyps. Colonial polyps. Generally, they lack a medusa body plan. They're a polyp. That's it. They're always a polyp. In the case of the corals, not all, but so many of the corals will actually secrete calcium carbonate skeletons. This is what produces the coral reef structure. The actual limestone of the coral reef is due to the calcium carbonate skeletons of corals. So incredibly important aspect of any marine reef ecosystem will be the coral reef, or the corals that make up the coral reef and their calcium carbonate skeleton. And a lot of them are symbiotic with zooanthellae. Those are those dinoflagellates that they have a relationship with. The dinoflagellate is going to be running photosynthesis and producing energy for the corals. We'll talk more about that when we get into the ecology in later chapters.